Welcome to Stamps Old World UK, the channel where we dive deep into the history, beauty, and value of rare and collectible stamps from around the globe. Today, we will explore the fascinating story and current market value of a truly iconic piece of American postal history, the U.S. Parcel Post 50-cent stamp, famously known for its dairying design. This stamp is one of the highlights of early 20th century American philately, and collectors worldwide admire its design, rarity, and historical significance. So, if you are a passionate stamp collector or simply curious about how much these small pieces of paper can be worth in today's market, stay with us until the end of the video as we unfold the true story behind this gem of postal history. The U.S. Parcel Post series was issued in 1913, a special set created to coincide with the introduction of the Parcel Post system in the United States. Among them, the 50-cent dairying stamp holds a special place because of its intricate red engraving that features a rural American farming scene with cows grazing in a pasture. This design represented the dairying industry, which was an important part of the American economy at the time. Unlike ordinary postage stamps, the Parcel Post issues were large, beautifully engraved, and created specifically for mailing packages, making them stand out in both design and size. Collectors particularly admire the bold red color, the large numeral 50 in each corner, and the words U.S. Parcel Post proudly displayed across the top. Now, let's talk about rarity and value. The 50-cent dairying stamp is not the rarest in the series, but it is one of the most sought after due to its striking design and historical connection. Millions were printed back in 1913, but over the years, many were lost, damaged, or used up, and finding examples in excellent condition is becoming harder every year. Collectors today value stamps that have never been used, known as mint condition, much higher than those that were canceled or postally used. A well-centered, fresh, mint-condition 50-cent dairying stamp can fetch anywhere from $100 to $300 in the current stamp market, depending on its overall quality and centering. Some examples with perfect centering and strong gum on the back have even reached higher auction results, selling for up to $500 among specialized collectors. If you have a used version of the 50-cent dairying stamp, its value is generally lower than a mint example, but it still carries significant collector interest. A nicely canceled used stamp in good condition can be worth around $20 to $50 in today's market. However, if the cancellation is light and does not obscure the design, the value can rise because collectors always prefer stamps where the artwork remains clearly visible. Stamps with heavy smudges or tears drop in value drastically, sometimes selling for only a few dollars. Condition is everything in the stamp world. A stamp may look ordinary to the untrained eye, but collectors judge them by factors like centering, color brightness, perforation quality, and whether the gum on the back is original and undisturbed. The 50-cent dairying stamp is no exception. Perfect examples with wide margins and fresh, vibrant red ink are prized the most. Poorly centered or faded stamps lose much of their market appeal. So, if you happen to own one of these stamps, it is worth examining its condition carefully, as small details can mean the difference between a stamp worth $20 and one worth $300 or more. In terms of historical significance, this stamp also stands as a reminder of how the postal system adapted to changing times. The Parcel Post Act of 1912 allowed farmers and businesses to ship goods more affordably, bringing the American countryside closer to urban consumers. The dairying design in particular was chosen to symbolize one of the essential industries supported by this new postal service. That is why this stamp is not just a collector's item, but also a tiny piece of American history preserved on paper. For collectors building a specialized U.S. Parcel Post collection, the 50-cent dairying stamp is an absolute must-have. While the full series ranges from 1 cent to $1 denominations, the 50-cent stamp is often remembered for its unique connection to the agricultural heritage of the United States. Over the decades, demand for Parcel Post issues has remained steady, and they continued to be valued highly in stamp auctions and dealer inventories. In today's stamp market, demand for classic U.S. issues like this one is strong, especially among collectors who prefer early 20th century engraved designs. Prices have remained stable, with slight increases in recent years as supply becomes more limited. Unlike modern stamps, which are produced in massive quantities and often remain common, classic issues, such as the 1913 Parcel Post stamps, grow scarcer over time, which means that the 50-cent Dairying stamp is not just a collectible, but also a long-term store of value for those investing in philately.
Next up, the world's most iconic postage stamps. Today, we will focus on one of the most important and meaningful American stamps ever issued, the 50-cent Susan B. Anthony U.S. postage stamp. This stamp not only has value in terms of money and collector demand, but it also represents a deep connection to history, as it honors one of the most influential figures in the fight for women's rights in the United States. In today's video, we will explore its background, design details, and how much it is worth in today's stamp market in dollars. The Susan B. Anthony 50-cent stamp was first issued in 1936 as part of the presidential series, which collectors often call the Prexies. It was released to honor Susan B. Anthony, the American social reformer and women's rights activist who played a vital role in the women's suffrage movement. She dedicated her life to ensuring that women had the right to vote and is remembered as one of the strongest voices for equality in American history. Placing her portrait on a U.S. postage stamp in the 1930s was not only a tribute to her contributions, but also a symbol of how far the nation had come since her early years of activism. The stamp itself is beautifully designed. It features a finely engraved portrait of Susan B. Anthony facing right, set against a detailed line background, and it is printed in a deep shade of purple or violet that makes it stand out in any collection. The denomination of 50 cents is shown clearly in the lower right corner, and her name is inscribed to the left of her portrait. The bold words U.S. postage appear at the bottom, completing the elegant look of this classic stamp. Even for those who may not collect stamps, the image of Anthony is instantly recognizable, making this issue a historical treasure as well as a philatelic one. When it comes to the market value of the Susan B. Anthony 50-cent stamp, several factors come into play, including condition, whether the stamp is mint or used, and how well it has been preserved over the years. For mint condition examples, meaning stamps that have never been used and still have their original gum on the back, the value can range between $20 and $50 in today's collector market. If the stamp is particularly well centered and has no flaws such as creases, fading, or disturbed gum, the price can be even higher, sometimes exceeding $75 in auctions. Stamps that are used or canceled typically sell for less, often between $5 and $15 depending on the clarity of the cancellation mark. A lightly canceled stamp, where the design remains fully visible, is always preferred by collectors and can bring a higher price than one with heavy ink markings. The most important aspect to remember is that condition is king in the stamp collecting world. Collectors pay great attention to centering, the freshness of the color, and the sharpness of the perforations. A stamp that appears crisp, clean, and vibrant will always attract more buyers than one that looks dull or has damage. For example, a perfectly centered Susan B. Anthony stamp with strong gum and vivid purple ink can sell for several times more than a poorly centered example of the same issue. This is why stamp grading plays such a crucial role in determining final value in the market today. Beyond its monetary worth, this stamp holds immense historical significance. Susan B. Anthony lived during a time when women were denied the most basic rights, yet she stood firm in her belief that all individuals deserved equal treatment under the law. She tirelessly campaigned for the abolition of slavery, the right for women to own property, and, most importantly, the right to vote. Although she did not live to see the 19th Amendment passed in 1920, which granted women the right to vote, her efforts laid the foundation for that victory. By placing her image on a U.S. postage stamp in the 1930s, the government paid tribute to a woman who had changed the course of American history. Collectors often see this stamp not just as a piece of paper, but as a lasting reminder of her fight for justice and equality. In today's stamp market, the Susan B. Anthony 50-cent stamp continues to be in demand among both U.S. collectors and those interested in women's history. Prices have remained steady for many years, and while it is not the rarest stamp in the world, its significance keeps it from ever falling out of popularity. For those building a collection of the presidential series, the Anthony stamp is essential, and for those focusing on historical figures, it holds a special place alongside other great leaders and reformers featured on American postage.
Next up, the great classics of American philately, the 50-cent Benjamin Franklin U.S. postage stamp. This stamp is more than just a collector's piece. It is a symbol of American heritage and a tribute to one of the nation's most important founding fathers. From its finely detailed design to its role in U.S. postal history, the Benjamin Franklin 50-cent stamp continues to capture the imagination of collectors across the world. In this video, we will explore its origins, design, and current market value in dollars. The 50-cent Franklin stamp belongs to the Washington Franklin Issues, a long-running series of definitive stamps issued by the United States between 1908 and 1922. This series is famous for featuring only two portraits, George Washington and Benjamin Franklin. The 50-cent denomination with Franklin's portrait was one of the higher values in the set, making it less commonly used by everyday people. While the lower denominations, like 1 cent or 2 cents, were used daily for regular postage, the 50-cent stamp was mostly reserved for heavier parcels, registered mail, and special postal services. Because of its higher face value and limited postal use, fewer examples survived in excellent condition, which is why collectors today hold it in such high regard. The design of the stamp is striking in its simplicity and elegance. At the center is a dignified profile portrait of Benjamin Franklin, engraved with great detail, showing his thoughtful expression and iconic long hair. The portrait is enclosed within an oval frame, surrounded by ornamental leaves and scrollwork. The words U.S. postage are inscribed at the top, and the denomination 50 cents appears boldly at the bottom, and in both lower corners. The stamp is printed in a shade of purple or violet, which gives it a rich and regal appearance. Even after more than a century, the engraving remains sharp and powerful, reminding us of the artistry and craftsmanship of early American stamp printing. When it comes to market value, the 50-cent Franklin stamp can vary greatly depending on condition and specific printing details. Mint condition examples, which have never been used and still have original gum on the back, are the most valuable. In today's stamp market, a clean and well-centered mint 50-cent Franklin can fetch between $200 and $500. If the stamp is superbly centered and has fresh, vibrant color, it can sell for even more, with some reaching $800 or higher at specialized auctions. Used examples are less valuable, but still highly collectible. A lightly canceled Franklin 50-cent stamp in fine condition may be worth between $50 and $100, while poorly centered or heavily marked copies may be valued at only $20. As with all collectible stamps, condition is the most important factor in determining value. Collectors prize stamps with perfect centering, sharp perforations, and bright, unfaded color. A stamp with flaws such as creases, tears, or heavy cancellations will lose much of its market appeal. However, rare variations and certain printing errors in the Franklin issues can sell for significantly higher amounts. Specialized collectors often spend years studying the Washington Franklin series because it is one of the most complex and fascinating areas of U.S. philately, with countless perforation types, watermarks, and printing differences. Beyond its monetary value, the Franklin 50-cent stamp is historically significant because of the man it honors. Franklin was not only one of the founding fathers of the United States, but also the very first Postmaster General. He helped establish an organized postal system in the colonies, which later evolved into the U.S. Post Office. His image on U.S. postage stamps is therefore both fitting and symbolic, connecting the early history of the country to the practical function of its postal system. For collectors, owning a Franklin stamp is like holding a piece of American history in your hands. In today's stamp market, interest in classic U.S. issues remains strong. The Franklin 50-cent stamp is especially popular with collectors who specialize in the Washington Franklin series or who want to own stamps featuring important American leaders. Its combination of historical significance, aesthetic beauty, and limited survival makes it a lasting treasure for philatelists worldwide. As with all classic stamps, values remain stable and often rise over time, making it not only a fascinating collectible, but also a potential long-term investment. So if you come across a Benjamin Franklin 50-cent stamp in an old collection or inherited album, be sure to examine it closely. Even if it is used, it carries significant value, but if you are fortunate enough to find a mint, well-centered example, you could be holding a small fortune. Each stamp tells a story, and this one tells the story of America's history, its postal system, and one of its greatest founding fathers. Thank you for watching today's video on Stamps Old World UK. I hope you enjoyed learning about the Benjamin Franklin 50-cent U.S. postage stamp, its fascinating background, and its current market value in today's dollars. If you love stamps and want to explore more treasures from the world of philately, make sure to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and share it with other collectors. Until next time, keep collecting, keep exploring, and keep discovering the amazing stories hidden behind the world's most beautiful stamps.